Welcome, everyone. This is the Tuesday, February the 1st edition of the NCAA Basketball Daily Dime Show, powered by the Predictive Playbook and presented to you by SportsMemo TV. And I think I have you more than covered again this week. I have Jesse Schulle joining me as the co-host. He is the regular for the Tuesday edition of this show. We do this show daily on the Daily Dime, so we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right to it, and we're going to start out with the first game that we're looking at. And this is one that Jesse wants to talk about. It's the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. They're 7th in the Big Ten, taking on the Northwestern Wildcats. They are struggling in the Big Ten at 13th, and by the way, there's 14 universities in the Big Ten. Good trivia question when you're at a bar. Maybe you'll get a free beer. See, Jesse, the show has already made somebody a profit. Anyway, the straight-up record of the Wildcats is 9-10. Against the spread, they're 8-10. Over/under 9-9. Home, they're 5-5. Favorite, they are 6-3. They are a favorite of 5.5 points in this matchup, Jesse, with a total of 132.5. Rutgers 12-8 on the season, 7-12-1 against the number, 11-9 over/under. They're 2-6 on the road. Where are you taking us in this matchup?
Well, John, are you telling me it should be the Big 14?
But it doesn't sound right, though, does it?
No, the Big 10 sounds better.
It does.
Well, I'm looking at Northwestern, a 5.5-point home favorite. Normally, I don't like to back Rutgers on the road. I normally look to back them at home. But they've actually been playing pretty solid basketball on the road this year, and the same can't be said for Northwestern at home. Northwestern has lost 8 of their last 9 overall. They've lost 5 straight at home. They're just 6-5 overall at home for the season. They've failed to cover in 5 of their last 6 home games. And Rutgers has actually had their number. Rutgers has won 5 of the last 6 head-to-head meetings outright. 2 of those wins came on the road at Northwestern. And if you look at Rutgers' recent performances on the road, their last 3 road games, they won at Nebraska and they lost at Minnesota, but that game was really close. They lost by just 3 points. And they won outright at Maryland. You look at ATS trends between these 2 teams. The road team's 4-1 in the last 5 head-to-head meetings. You got an experienced Rutgers team with a couple seniors leading them in scoring. Geo Baker and Ron Harper Jr. I just think Rutgers is the better team and getting 5.5 points. I like the dog in this match.
Very interesting. I was going to say, Rutgers is 7-3 straight up, 5-5 against the spread the last 10. Northwestern 2-8 straight up, 3-7 against the number. When you look at numbers like that, Jesse, just for the beginning handicappers out there, how do you assess that? In other words, Northwestern's 2-8, 3-7. Maybe that's the value because they're kind of due to not lose again, type of thing. How do you go about explaining that matchup?
Well, the way I approach every game is it all depends on the number. And I mean, if you're giving me a inferior home team with an inferior record to their opponent, and I'm getting a good number to back them, that's great. But when they're asked to cover 5.5 points and they've been struggling, that's not so great. So, I mean, in order to talk me into betting on Northwestern here, you'd have to give me a much lower number than 5.5 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. That was well done. Let's move on to the second game here. We are looking at the Texas Longhorns. They are now 4th in the Big 12 on a 3-game winning streak with a 16-5 straight-up record. Hard to believe they're 16-5 despite playing as poorly as they have, but thank God for their defense in Austin because they are ranked number 1 in points allowed per game at 54.5. They are taking on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They're 3rd in the Big 12, so this is a huge game because both teams have the same record of 16-5. 14-7 are the Red Raiders against the number. 10-11 over/under at home. The Red Raiders are a perfect 13-0. 13-2 is a favorite. But Jesse, you may disagree with me on this one, but I think the wrong team is favored. I think Texas is finally getting their feet underneath them. And with that defense and getting points, I don't care that they're 0-2 as an underdog. That was when they were playing horribly bad as a team. They're much different now for that last 3 games. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They know the situation here at the United Supermarkets Arena tonight at 9 o'clock. And with a win, they can solidify themselves as a contender in the Big 12. As I said, they have the number 1 scoring defense in the nation, in large part because they play so slow. They rank 325th out of 358 Division I programs in basketball in field goals attempted per game, just taking 54 shots a game. But they make the most of it, obviously. Texas Tech is not a real big pace type of team either, and they are 240th in the nation at 57 shots per game. However, they're 32nd in the nation in field goal percentage at 48%. So again, 2 efficient teams. Based on the metrics, Texas Tech right now for the season is a much more efficient offense than Texas. But where I come away with this is that the defense of Texas is very impressive. I don't care how slow they play. I think that's going to be overwhelming for the Red Raiders, even though they're playing at home. And I see Texas coming away with the win. And I also have an edge on the under, which I think is the way to go in this game. You're playing under with home teams like Texas Tech after a game in which they shot 57% or higher, that are allowing 43% or lower against an opponent after 2 straight games, allowing a shooting percentage of 37% or less, which is obviously Texas. The under is 70 and 30 for 70% over the last 25 NCAA basketball seasons. That translates to 70% winners. So I definitely am leaning pretty hard on Texas and leaning on the under. What do you think of that, Jesse? Do you agree, disagree, don't care? Going through the window with me?
Well, it is hard to bet against Texas Tech at home. I think, what are they, 13-0 at home or something like that. But I do see that the line movement would indicate that you might be onto something, because I see it's come down a bit. The money's coming in on Texas as the dog. So, you might be onto something there. And I definitely agree about the under. I could see both these teams scoring in the 50s, 58, 55, something like that. So I'm certainly not going to disagree with you.
Yeah, it could be a real physical type of game too in Lubbock. They have a tradition of banging it and going at each other pretty hard. So good stuff. Let's move on to your second game. Michigan State Spartans are now 3rd in the Big Ten. They're taking on an inferior Maryland Terrapins team. But the Maryland Terrapins, albeit inferior on paper, are only a 3.5-point home dog. They are 11-10 on the season. They're 7-6 at home. Michigan State 16-4 overall, a solid 4-1 on the road, and they are 12-7 with 1 push against the number for this season. Where are you taking us in this matchup?
Well, we're stacking up the road teams here. I'm going with Michigan State here. The Spartans are just a half a game out of first place in the Big Ten. Maryland's only a game above 500 at home. If you look at their ATS performance at home, they're 8-20 against the spread in their last 28 home games. Maryland's offense has been struggling. They averaged just 65.4 points over their last 5 games. Maryland ranks 13th in the Big Ten in 3-point field goal percentage. Michigan State ranks 2nd, and that 3-point shooting is often key in deciding games. Recent win for Maryland over Rutgers. I watched that game, and man, they were incredible. They shot 12 of 25 for 48% from 3-point range, which is not typical of the second worst 3-point shooting team in Big Ten. But what was striking is you'd think that would be a blowout. I mean, you hit almost 50% of your threes, 12 made threes, but the final score was 68-60. They barely beat Rutgers in that game. Michigan State is 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 road games. They play a pretty solid game on the road. They're allowing just 63.2 points per game on the road this season. They are the better team. It is just 3.5 points. I'm going to go with Michigan State to win this by 5 or more.
Yeah, I can't trust Maryland. I can't trust the fact that they are basically a one-dimensional team from what you broke down there. They score most of their points from inside the arc. And that just allows a already good Michigan State defense to pack it in the paint, maybe play more zone than they usually do against these guys. And at 3.5, that seems pretty darn cheap to be taking a 16-4 pedigree like Michigan State over Maryland, who's just 11-10. So I'm with you on that for sure. Our last game is another big one. Texas A&M Aggies, they're 7th in the SEC. 15-6 on the season, traveling to the Thompson Bowling Arena, which means they are traveling to the Tennessee Volunteers tonight. They are 4th in the SEC, 14-6 on the season, 12-8 against the number, and the over/under 8-12 in the Volunteers games, and they're a perfect 11-0 at home. And when they've been favored straight up, they are 14-1. The underdog, as an underdog, the Aggies are 2-5 on the season, just 3-2 away. 13-7 over/under, and 11-9 against the number. And again, I said already that they're 15-6. The Tennessee Volunteers are ranked 20th in the nation. They come in this as a double-digit 11-point favorite, which initially seems like an awful lot to be laying to a 14-6 Texas A&M team. Total for this game is 131. But I'm here to tell you, Jesse, and I think you'll agree with me, that the Volunteers is the pick here. And honestly, in the matchup and running my predictive models, I would not be surprised if Tennessee wins this game by 17 or more in a real beat-down, blowout fashion. There's a lot of stuff that is favoring Tennessee. Tennessee plays fast. They average 62 shots a game, ranking 45th in the nation. They attempt 30, or they rank 34th in the nation, attempting 27 3-point shots per game, and they just get at it. They just run you off the court and cause defensive fatigue, and it just wears. It's just almost like a ground attack in football, wearing down the defensive line until you get into the late third quarter and fourth quarter, and we actually saw that play out on 2 of the NFL games this past Sunday. But assists per game is really where I like this Tennessee Volunteer team. I'm a big advocate of the assist to turnover ratio as the first real look at how well a team takes care of the ball. And it's one thing to get a lot of assists and pass the ball around on offense, but then if you pass it around too much and you don't pass it effectively, you get turnovers. So a ratio that approaches anything over 1.5 at the college level is very good, and Tennessee is way above that. They also rank 17th in the nation, averaging 16.7 assists per game. And that's nearly 2.5 more per game than Texas A&M gets. So I think there is tremendous advantages on both ends of the court with Tennessee, and I see Tennessee winning this easily and covering the 11-point spread. Any further thoughts on this matchup, Jesse?
I think you did a good job of convincing me on that one. I think you were certainly correct about how that big number sort of stands out at first glance, but after listening to you break it down, it makes plenty of sense.
I'm glad you're on my side, because that usually we do pretty well against the spread when we're both on the same side. So the last portion of the show here is to identify a single or maybe 2 best bets. They don't even have to be best bets that we just broke down. It could be in games on the NCAA card that we didn't talk about. But I'll start out. I really like the under in the Texas game and Tennessee. So I'll make those my 2 preferred bets for the show. And how about you?
That Michigan State-Maryland game, I am also eyeing the total in that one, and I think that could be an under as well.
Good stuff. So there you have it. We have 3 preferred bets on the show here, and that's going to conclude the show. Jesse, I appreciate your time as always. It's always a blast with you. We get through these 4 games very quickly, and we try not to waste anybody's time, but at the same time give you a lot of information that you can use that is actionable at the window and also in cashing tickets. So on behalf of SportsMemo TV, always remember, folks, bet with your head and never over it, and may all the wins be yours.